The back of Vince's hand connected with the boy's face with a sickening crack that echoed through the cavernous warehouse. 8-year-old Leo Vance crumpled against the rusted chair, blood trickling from his split lip, his whimpers barely audible over the sound of rain hammering the corrugated metal roof. "Shut your mouth, you little shit," Vince snarled, grabbing a fistful of the boy's hair. "Your daddy's gonna pay every penny, or I'll send him your fingers one by one. You understand me?" Leo sobbed, his small body shaking. His inhaler had fallen somewhere in the darkness when they dragged him from the van, and each breath wheezed painfully in his chest. "Please," the child whispered. "I want my mom." Vince raised his hand again, and froze. In the deepest shadow of the northwest corner, beneath a tarp that looked like a pile of forgotten trash, something massive shifted. The sound was subtle, leather creaking, metal ticking as it cooled, but in the silence following the boy's plea, it might as well have been thunder. Vince's hand slowly lowered. "Ratner," he hissed. "You hear that?" The wiry man with track marks running up his arms jerked his head toward the darkness. "Probably just rats, boss. This place is a dump. Rats don't sound like that." In the corner, 6 feet and 4 inches of muscle, leather, and barely contained violence opened his eyes. Silas Grave Danton had been sleeping the sleep of the truly exhausted. 3 days on the road, running from ghosts and toward nothing in particular. The abandoned Riverside textile mill had seemed like the perfect place to crash for the night, until 3 idiots dragged a terrified child into his sanctuary and committed the one sin Grave could never forgive. They'd woken him up, and they'd hurt a kid. Grave's massive hand closed around the grip of his grandfather's trench knife, still strapped to his boot. His jaw clenched beneath his graying beard. The cut on his back, the leather vest bearing the Iron Saints MC patch, seemed to grow heavier with righteous fury. These men had no idea they'd just locked themselves in a cage with a predator. 12 hours earlier, Silas Danton had pulled his 2003 Harley Road King into the abandoned mill's loading bay just as the first drops of what promised to be a biblical storm began to fall. The bike's engine ticked as it cooled, a familiar metallic lullaby that usually brought him peace. Peace had been in short supply since his release from Ironwood Correctional 3 weeks ago. The warehouse smelled like industrial death, machine oil gone rancid, mildew, and the particular decay that comes from 20 years of abandonment. Pigeons roost in the high rafters, their cooing echoing off walls that still bore the faded remnants of workers' safety posters from 1987. Broken windows high above let in sheets of moonlight that carved the vast space into territories of light and shadow. Grave preferred the shadows. He'd set up his bedroll in the northwest corner, behind a collapsed section of industrial shelving that created a natural blind. His Harley was covered with a weathered tarp, looking like nothing more than another piece of discarded junk. The position gave him cover, concealment, and 2 exit routes, old habits from his time as the Iron Saints sergeant-at-arms died hard. Not that he expected trouble. The mill was 15 miles outside of Riverside City, down a road so potholed it would destroy any vehicle without serious suspension. Nobody came out here. Nobody except a man trying to disappear. Grave had stretched out on his back, his cut folded carefully beside him. "You never lay on your colors," that was disrespectful, and let the rain drumming on the roof lull him toward sleep. Tomorrow he'd push north, maybe make it to Canada. Start over. Find work at a garage, keep his head down, stay away from the life. Stay away from trouble. His last thought before sleep claimed him was of his daughter, Sarah. 16 now. Hadn't seen him in 8 years, not since the trial. Probably better that way. What kind of future did a Hell's Angel offer his little girl except disappointment and visiting rooms? The sleep was deep and dreamless, the kind that comes from 3 days of riding through state after state, running on truck stop coffee and the fumes of a life left behind, until the screech of tires shattered the silence. Graves' eyes snapped open, instantly alert. Years of sleeping in clubhouses, in county lockup, in places where closing your eyes meant vulnerability. All of it hardwired his brain to wake at the first sign of intrusion. The heavy steel loading doors groaned open. A slice of moonlight cut across the oil-stained concrete floor. An engine idled, a van, from the sound of it. Voices, harsh and urgent. Grave remained perfectly still, barely breathing. His hand found the knife at his boot on pure instinct. "Get him inside," a man's voice snapped. Hurry up before someone sees. Ain't nobody out here, Vince. A different voice, younger, jittery. Place is deader than disco. Just do what I say, Ratner. Footsteps. The scrape of shoes on concrete. And then, a child's sob. Hi, terrified, breaking. Graves' jaw clenched. He slowly turned his head, peering through a gap in the shelving. 3 men entered the warehouse. The first, clearly the leader, was mid-30s with the kind of sharp-featured face that spoke of too much meth and too little conscience. He wore an expensive leather jacket that looked ridiculous on his wiry frame. Wannabe tough guy, Grave assessed immediately. The second man was younger, maybe 25, with hollow eyes and the nervous energy of an addict. His hands shook as he dragged in a large equipment case. The third was pure muscle, 6'2", easily 270, with a shaved head and the kind of prison yard physique that came from a steady diet of push-ups and violence. He carried a shotgun with the casual ease of someone who'd used it before. Between the first 2 men, they dragged a small boy. 8 years old, maybe 9. Dressed in pajamas, Spider-Man pajamas. One shoe missing. Face streaked with tears and snot. Hands zip-tied in front of him. The boy stumbled, and the leader, Vince, yanked him upright by his hair. Keep moving, brat. In his corner, Silas Grave went very, very still. The kind of stillness that came before extreme violence. His knuckles whitened around the knife handle. Not my problem, the practical part of his brain whispered. You're on parole. 1 phone call to the cops, and you walk away clean. Don't be stupid. But Grave had never been accused of being smart. The men dragged the boy to the center of the warehouse floor, where ancient machinery created a rough circle of space. The muscle, Bull, Vince called him, grabbed a rusted chair and slammed it down. Tie him, Vince ordered. Ratner pulled duct tape from the equipment case with shaking hands. The boy tried to pull away, and Vince backhanded him casually, the way you'd swat a fly. The sound of palm on flesh echoed through the warehouse. The boy's sob became a wail. Graves' breathing slowed. Controlled. He'd learned meditation in prison, not the hippie kind, but the warrior kind. The kind that let you channel rage into precision. He drew on it now, forcing himself to observe, to assess, to plan. 3 targets. 1 firearm visible, the shotgun. Vince wore a shoulder holster. Grave could see the bulge under his jacket. Unknown on Ratner, but assume armed. The boy was their leverage, which meant they wouldn't kill him immediately. Range, approximately 40 yards from his position to theirs. Cover, excellent. The warehouse was a maze of industrial debris, support pillars, and shadows. Advantage, surprise. They had no idea he was here. Disadvantage. He was 1 man, 3 weeks out of an 8-year stretch, with nothing but a knife and righteous fury. Then Vince kicked the boy in the ribs, and Graves stopped calculating odds. Some things didn't require math. Vince paced in front of the sobbing child, his phone pressed to his ear. No signal. Of course not. This godforsaken place was probably built before cell towers existed. Ratner, check the van. We got the sat phone. Yeah, boss. Ratner scurried toward the exit like the junkie rat he was. Vince looked down at Leo Vance, heir to the Vance Tech fortune, and smiled. The kidnapping had been almost too easy. The boy's parents kept him on such a tight leash. Private school, security guards, the works. But the family vacation to their lake house had been publicly announced. All Vince had to do was wait until the parents went into town for their romantic dinner, and the teenage babysitter was too busy sexting to notice the bedroom window sliding open. 3 hours. That's all it had taken to snatch the golden goose and disappear into the night. Except then Bull had taken a turn too fast on Route 17, blown a tire, and nearly wrapped them around a pine tree. The van's suspension was shot, oil leaking everywhere. They'd barely limped off the highway before the engine started making sounds like a garbage disposal eating silverware. Ratner had spotted the access road to the old mill. Perfect. Abandoned, isolated, with a roof to wait out the storm. They'd hole up here until dawn, call the parents with their demands, and be on a beach in Costa Rica by next week. Foolproof. Bull leaned against a support pillar, shotgun resting on his massive shoulder. How much you think we can get? Vance is worth $800 million, Vince said. We ask for $10 million. Chump change to him. He'll pay it just to avoid the media circus. And if he don't? Vince looked at Leo, and his smile turned cruel. Then we make him understand we're serious. Kid's got 10 fingers. 10 toes. 20 chances to negotiate. Leo whimpered, curling in on himself. His chest was tight, breath whistling. Where was his inhaler? Mom always made sure he had it. His chest hurt so bad, like someone was sitting on him. Please, he whispered. I can't breathe good. I need my medicine. You'll breathe when I tell you to breathe, Vince snapped. He raised his hand again, not to hit, just to watch the kid flinch. Power. That's what this was about. Not just money. Power over the rich bastards who never looked twice at guys like Vincent Halloran, who'd spent their whole lives being told they'd never amount to anything. Well, who had the power now? His hand was still raised when the sound came. Clang. Metal on metal, deep in the shadows to the northwest. Vince's hand slowly lowered. The hell was that? Bull straightened, shotgun coming up. Want me to check? Wait. Vince strained his ears. Nothing but rain and the boy's labored breathing. Probably just the building settling. Place is falling apart. Didn't sound like settling. Bull grunted. Another sound. Softer this time. Like something heavy being dragged across concrete. Vince's hand went to his pistol. Ratner, he called toward the exit. You hear that? No answer. Ratner. Still nothing. Son of a bitch probably popped outside for a hit, Vince muttered. Bull, go find that junkie and tell him. The lights went out. Not that there had been many, just the van's headlights spilling through the open bay doors. But they died suddenly, along with the engine. Darkness swallowed the warehouse whole. Leo's breathing turned to panicked gasps. Bull swore, fumbling for a flashlight. Vince's hand found his pistol, drew it. Just the battery, Bull said, though his voice carried an edge of uncertainty. Old van. Probably a short. Then fix it. Vince. Fix it. Bull moved toward the bay doors, flashlight beam cutting through the dark. The cone of light revealed rain, rusted machinery, shadows that seemed to move at the edge of its reach. He was halfway to the van when the flashlight revealed Ratner. Or what was left of him. The junkie lay crumpled against the van's rear wheel, limbs bent at angles that made Bull's stomach turn. His face was a purple mask, tongue protruding. Not dead, his chest still hitched with shallow breaths, but close. Boss, Bull called, voice tight. We got a problem. Vince moved forward, Leo forgotten for the moment. His flashlight joined Bull's. Ratner's eyes rolled toward them, filled with animal terror. He tried to speak, but only a wheeze emerged. Someone had crushed his windpipe. What the hell? Vince scanned the darkness. Who's there? Show yourself. The warehouse answered with silence. Then, from everywhere and nowhere, a voice rumbled. Deep. Rough. Like gravel in a cement mixer. You brought a kid into my house. Bad move. Grave watched from his perch on the catwalk, 15 feet above the warehouse floor. He'd moved up here as soon as the lights died. His doing, a simple matter of yanking the van's battery cables. And now he had the high ground and shadows for cover. Below, the two remaining kidnappers spun in circles, flashlight beams slashing uselessly through the dark. The big one, Bull, kept the shotgun up, finger on the trigger. Dangerous. Scared men with guns made mistakes, and Buckshot didn't care about intentions. Graves' assessment was clinical, honed by years as the Iron Saints enforcer. Target 1, Vince, leader. Armed with what looked like a 9mm, smart enough to be dangerous, stupid enough to kidnap a kid. Probably has delusions of being a criminal mastermind. Weakness, ego. Target 2, Bull, muscle. Shotgun, Remington 870, from the profile. Prison tats on his neck. Real yard dog. Dangerous in close quarters, but not bright. Weakness, loyalty to Vince. Target 3, Ratner, neutralized. Grave had caught him in the dark, one hand clamping over his mouth, the other applying pressure to his carotid until the junkie went limp. He'd crushed the man's windpipe just enough to keep him quiet without killing him. Probably. Grave didn't particularly care either way. The boy, Leo, remained taped to the chair, forgotten in their panic. That was good. Gave Grave room to work. He moved along the catwalk with the silence of a man who'd spent 8 years learning to ghost through a prison without drawing attention. Each footfall was precise, weight distributed, leather cut barely whispering against his denim. Below, Vince was barking orders. It's just one guy. Has to be. Probably some homeless bum we scared up. Homeless bums don't sound like that, Bull muttered. Then some biker asshole squatting here. So what? We got guns. He's got what? Probably a knife, maybe a bat. We flash some lead. He'll run. Grave almost smiled at that. Flash some lead. Like this was a movie. These weren't professionals. Hell, they weren't even good criminals. Just 3 desperate men who thought they'd found an easy score. They had no idea what they'd stumbled into. The Iron Saints MC wasn't the biggest club in the state, but they'd earned their reputation the hard way. When you wore the patch, you learned to fight. Not bar fight, drunken haymaker bullshit. Real fighting. The kind where you ended threats permanently, where hesitation got you killed, where the line between warrior and monster blurred until it disappeared. Grave had been the club's sergeant-at-arms, responsible for discipline and security. He'd broken bones, shattered kneecaps, left men whimpering in alleys. All of it sanctioned by the club, all of it in service to the brotherhood. But he'd drawn one line he never crossed: kids. Women and kids were off limits, period. Any brother who violated that rule answered to Grave personally. It's what had landed him in Ironwood. A rival gang, the Death's Head MC, had started moving into Iron Saints territory. The club leadership had ordered a show of force. They'd hit a Death's Head clubhouse, burned it to the ground. It was supposed to be empty. It wasn't. A Death's Head member had brought his girlfriend and her 5-year-old daughter to the clubhouse that night. When the smoke cleared, the woman was dead from the flames. The little girl survived, barely. The club had told Grave to keep quiet, that it was just collateral damage. The price of war. Grave had turned himself in instead. Pled guilty to aggravated arson. 8 years. The Iron Saints had cut him loose, declared him exiled for breaking the code of silence. Fine. Grave didn't regret it. Some prices were worth paying. Now, watching Leo struggle for breath down below, Grave felt that same cold clarity settle over him. These men had hurt a child. In his house. On his watch. They were going to learn what happened when you woke the sleeping giant. He reached into his cut and pulled out a heavy chain. About 3 feet long, half-inch lengths, the kind bikers wrapped around their wallets or used to lock bikes. Grave had carried this particular chain for 15 years. It had seen its share of blood. Time to add a little more. He found a position above Bull, directly over a support beam. The big man was still sweeping his flashlight around, shotgun at low ready. Grave wrapped one end of the chain around his fist, let the other end dangle. Then he dropped a wrench he'd found on the catwalk. It hit the concrete 3 feet from Vince with a metallic clang that made both men jump. Bull's flashlight snapped upward, beam piercing the darkness. Grave was already moving, swinging from beam to beam like a leather-clad ape, staying just ahead of the light. There! Bull shouted, shotgun coming up. Boom. The blast was deafening in the enclosed space. Buckshot shredded a section of catwalk where Grave had been a heartbeat before. Sparks flew as pellets ricocheted off metal. Leo screamed. Grave used the boy's scream as cover, dropping from the catwalk onto a piece of machinery below, then sliding down to ground level. He was behind them now, in the shadows, chain ready. You missed, Vince snarled. And now he knows we're armed. I'll blow his head off next time. Bull promised, racking another shell. You'll blow a hole in the roof. Give me that. Vince grabbed for the shotgun. Bull pulled it back. I got this. Grave's chain whipped out of the darkness like a steel serpent, wrapping around Bull's ankle. One massive yank, and the big man went down hard, skull bouncing off concrete with a sound like a pumpkin splitting. The shotgun clattered away. Vince spun, pistol up, flashlight stabbing into the shadows. Nothing. Just darkness and that chain, slowly sliding back into the black like a retreating snake. Bull. Vince dropped beside his partner. Bull, get up. Bull groaned, eyes rolling. Blood pooled beneath his head. Not dead, but definitely concussed. Vince was alone now. He backed toward Leo, grabbed the boy by his hair, hauled him up. The chair came with him, still taped to the kid's legs. Vince jammed his pistol against Leo's temple. Listen to me. Vince's voice cracked. I don't know who you are, but this boy dies if you don't back off. You hear me? I'll paint the walls with his brains. Silence. Then, from the shadows directly in front of him, that voice again. Closer now. So close Vince could feel the base of it in his chest. No, you won't. Vince fired wildly, 3 shots into the darkness. Muzzle flash lit the warehouse in strobing bursts, rusted machinery, empty space, shadows. And in the last flash, for just an instant, Vince saw him. A mountain of a man. 6'4" at least, broad as a refrigerator. Leather cut over a denim shirt. Gray-bearded face like a cliffside. eyes that reflected the muzzle flash like an animal's. Those eyes held no fear, only calculation. Vince's gun clicked empty. Reload, that voice rumbled. I'll wait. Vince's hands shook so badly he dropped the magazine. It clattered on the concrete, bullets scattering. From the darkness, Graves spoke again. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to step away from the boy. You're going to put your hands on your head. You're going to kneel down. And then you're going to pray I'm feeling merciful. Or what? Vince tried for defiant, but landed somewhere around terrified. Or I stop being civilized about this. Vince had always considered himself a survivor. Growing up in the Riverside projects, you learned fast, fight or flight, prey or predator. He'd chosen predator. Sold his first bag of meth at 14. First armed robbery at 16. He'd done 2 years in county for assault, came out harder. The key to survival was reading the room, knowing when to push and when to fold. Right now, every instinct screamed fold. But folding meant prison. Real prison, not county. With his record, kidnapping a kid, he was looking at life, no parole. So Vince did what cornered animals do. He lunged for the shotgun. Bull's unconscious bulk had fallen across it, but Vince could see the stock. He dove, fingers stretching. Grave materialized from the shadows like violence made flesh. One hand clamped on Vince's wrist, stopping his reach. The other hand, wrapped in chain, came around in a brutal arc that caught Vince across the jaw. The impact lifted Vince off his feet and deposited him 3 yards away in a heap. Blood and teeth scattered across the concrete. His vision swam, stars and darkness trading places. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard Leo crying. Poor kid. Wrong place, wrong time. Story of Vince's life, too, really. Always wrong everything. He tried to stand. Couldn't. The world kept tilting. Boots appeared in his vision. Big ones. Scarred leather, steel-toed. The kind you wore when you expected to kick through bones. Stay down, Graves said. Not a threat. A fact. Vince stayed down. Graves stepped over him, moving toward Leo. The boy had witnessed everything. The violence, the darkness, the monster emerging from shadows. He was hyperventilating now, each breath a painful wheeze. Grave knelt beside the chair. Up close, he was even more terrifying. Scars crisscrossed his knuckles. More scars on his neck, disappearing into his collar. His eyes were pale blue, almost colorless, and they studied Leo with an intensity that made the boy freeze. Easy, kid, Grave rumbled. I'm not going to hurt you. Please, Leo whispered. I want my mom. I know. Grave pulled his knife. 8 inches of carbon steel, sharp enough to shave with. Leo's eyes went wide. Hold still. The blade sliced through the duct tape like butter. 1 cut, 2, 3. Leo's arms came free, then his legs. The chair clattered aside. Leo stood on shaking legs, then collapsed. His breathing was getting worse. Each inhale, a labored rasp. You asthmatic? Grave asked. Leo nodded, tears streaming. My inhaler. I dropped it. Grave looked around. In the darkness, finding a small plastic inhaler would be like finding a contact lens in a coal mine. But the kid was starting to turn blue around the lips. Vince, Grave called, not looking away from Leo. Where's the boy's inhaler? Vince tried to speak, but his broken jaw wouldn't cooperate. He managed to point toward the van. Grave scooped Leo up like he weighed nothing and carried him toward the bay doors. Behind them, Bull groaned, starting to come around. Don't even think about it, Grave said without turning. Bull wisely decided to keep lying down. At the van, Grave set Leo on the running board and searched the back. Equipment cases, duct tape, zip ties, a baseball bat, the tools of their trade. And there, in a corner, the blue L-shaped inhaler. He handed it to Leo. The boy grabbed it with both hands, pressed it to his mouth, inhaled. Once, twice. Color started returning to his face. Better? Grave asked. Leo nodded, still drawing in the medicine. Good. Now listen carefully. You're going to stay right here by the van. Don't move. Don't run. I've got 2 more problems to deal with. And then we're calling the cops. Understand? Are you? Leo's voice was small. Are you going to kill them? Grave looked back at Vince and Bull, both barely conscious. He could kill them. Should, probably. They'd kidnapped a child. They'd hurt him. In Grave's world. The world of the Iron Saints. That kind of sin got you buried in the desert with a mouthful of sand. But Grave wasn't Iron Saints anymore. He was just a tired man trying to do the right thing. No, he said. But they're going to wish I had. Behind them, Bull had managed to sit up. Blood matted his bald scalp. He fumbled for the shotgun, fingers closing around the barrel. Graves saw it in his peripheral vision. Didn't even turn around. Just reached down, grabbed a chunk of concrete the size of a softball, and hurled it. The concrete caught Bull in the center of his chest with a sound like a bass drum. The big man went back down, gasping, shotgun forgotten. Told you, Grave muttered. Don't even think about it. He walked back to Vince, chain dragging behind him like a steel tail. Vince tried to crawl away, leaving a trail of blood and broken teeth. Grave stepped on his ankle. Not hard enough to break it, just hard enough to stop him. Here's the thing, Grave said, squatting down so they were eye level. You're going to prison. That's guaranteed. How much you suffer before you get there, that's up to you. Vince gurgled something that might have been mercy, or might have been please, or might have been his broken jaw trying to form words his brain couldn't finish. Did you show the boy mercy? Grave asked. When he asked for his inhaler. When he begged for his mom. Vince's one working eye widened in understanding. That's what I thought. Grave stood. Bull, get up. Bull stayed down, one hand clutching his chest. Probably cracked ribs. Grave knew the feeling. He'd had his share. I said get up. Can't, Bull wheezed. You broke something. Good. Then crawl. Both of you. Over there. Grave pointed to a support pillar in the center of the warehouse. It took them 5 minutes. Vince crawling with his broken jaw, Bull dragging himself with his damaged ribs. Grave followed, chain in one hand, shotgun in the other. He picked it up and cleared it, pocketing the shells. At the pillar, Grave used zip ties from their own equipment to secure them back to back. Bull's wrists to Vince's wrists, ankles to ankles. When he was done, they couldn't move more than an inch. Comfortable? Grave asked. Neither answered. Good. He walked back to Leo, who'd been watching everything with wide eyes. You okay? Grave asked. You're scary, Leo said. But, thank you. You're welcome. Grave pulled out Vince's phone. No signal, like the man had said, but there was an emergency satellite phone in the equipment case. He powered it on. What's your mom's number? Leo recited it. Grave dialed. It rang once before a woman's panicked voice answered. Leo? Leo. Mrs. Vance, my name is Silas. Your son is safe. I'm at the old Riverside Textile Mill, off Route 17. Call the police. Tell them to bring an ambulance. Do you understand? Who are you? Where's my baby? If you've hurt him. I haven't hurt him. But the men who took him won't be walking right for a while. Now call the cops. Clock's ticking. He hung up before she could respond, then knelt beside Leo. They're coming, Graves said. Your mom, the police. You're going home. What about you? Leo asked. Grave looked toward the bay doors, where rain still fell and dawn was beginning to gray the eastern sky. His Harley was still hidden in the corner. He could be gone before the cops arrived. Avoid questions. Avoid his parole officer finding out he'd been involved in a violent incident, even a justified one. I'll be around, Graves said, which wasn't really a lie. He'd be around. Just not here. Will I see you again? Graves stood, his knees popping. He was getting too old for this shit. I don't think so, kid. Can I ask you something? Shoot. Are you a bad guy? Grave considered the question. He'd broken laws. Hurt people. Spent 8 years in a cage because of it. By most definitions, yeah, he was a bad guy. But he'd also just saved a kid's life. I'm complicated, Grave said finally. Now stay put. I'm going to check on our friends one more time. He walked to the pillar where Vince and Bull were secured. Both men looked at him with fear and hatred in equal measure. The cops will be here soon, Graves said. You'll tell them everything. How you grabbed the kid, where you were planning to keep him, what the ransom was. You'll cooperate fully. You know what? Neither responded. Grave leaned in close. Because if you don't, if you get some slick lawyer and walk on a technicality, I will find you. Both of you. And what I did tonight will seem like a warm-up. Are we clear? Vince nodded frantically. Bull just closed his eyes. Good talk. Grave walked back to his corner, started gathering his gear. Bedroll. Saddlebags. Cut. He shrugged into the vest, felt the familiar weight settle across his shoulders. The Iron Saints patch might not mean brotherhood anymore, but it still meant something to him. It meant he was a man who protected the innocent, even when it cost him everything. His Harley started with a rumble that echoed through the warehouse. He rolled it toward the loading bay, then paused. Leo stood there, still in his Spider-Man pajamas, looking impossibly small and fragile. Grave reached back, unzipped the saddlebag, and pulled out his leather jacket. Not the cut, just a plain black riding jacket. He walked over and draped it around the boy's shoulders. It swallowed him whole, but at least it was warm. For your trouble, Grave said. I can't keep this, Leo protested. It's yours. I got another one. A lie, but what the hell? Besides, you earned it. You were brave tonight. I was scared. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going anyway. Remember that. In the distance, sirens. Red and blue lights flickering through the rain. Grave swung onto his bike. The road king rumbled beneath him, eager to run. Mr. Silas? Leo called. Grave looked back. My dad's going to want to thank you. Maybe give you a reward. I don't need a reward, kid. Just, Grave paused, searching for the right words. Just grow up good. Be better than men like me. That's reward enough. He kicked the Harley into gear and roared out the back bay, into the rain and the breaking dawn. Behind him, police cars screamed into the front entrance. Doors slammed. Voices shouted. But Silas, Grave, Danton was already gone, swallowed by the morning mist like a ghost. Like a guardian angel in leather and steel. Detective Sarah Chun had been a cop for 12 years, and she'd seen some strange things. But this was new. The crime scene was a study in controlled violence. 2 suspects secured to a pillar with their own zip ties, both requiring medical attention but alive. 1 suspect, the junkie, found unconscious by the van, his windpipe bruised but not crushed. The victim, 8-year-old Leo Vance, wrapped in an oversized leather jacket, physically unhurt except for some minor bruising. And 0 sign of whoever had done this. Walk me through it again, Chin said to Leo, who was sitting in the back of an ambulance while a paramedic checked his vitals. Leo clutched the leather jacket around his shoulders. It smelled like motor oil and cigarette smoke, and something else he couldn't identify, maybe safety. He was sleeping in the corner, Leo said for the 3rd time. They didn't know he was there. And when they hurt me, he came out. This man, what did he look like? Big. Really big. Like a superhero, but scarier. He had a beard, and he wore this vest with a patch on the back. A motorcycle club patch. Leo nodded. He had a motorcycle. A Harley, I think. My uncle has one. Chin made notes. Motorcycle club. That narrowed it down to about 10,000 bikers in the tri-state area. Fantastic. And he didn't hurt you? No. He saved me. He gave me my inhaler. And his jacket. Leo pulled it tighter. Can I keep it? We'll see, honey. It's evidence. But he gave it to me. Chin looked at the jacket more carefully. Well-worn leather. No visible club markings on the outside. She carefully pulled it open to check the interior. No tags. No identifying marks. Whoever this guy was, he knew how to stay anonymous. Across the warehouse, the EMTs were loading Vincent Halloran onto a stretcher. His jaw was shattered, 3 teeth missing, 1 eye swollen shut. He'd be eating through a straw for months. His partner, Marcus Bull Grayson, had 2 cracked ribs and a severe concussion. The 3rd man, Terry Ratner, had damage to his trachea that would require surgery. All 3 would survive. All 3 would go to prison for a very long time. But the man who'd done this to them? Gone like smoke. Chin's partner, Detective Marcus Williams, walked over holding an evidence bag. Found something interesting, he said. Inside the bag was a chain. 30 inches of half-inch steel links. One end wrapped in black electrical tape for grip. The other end showed dark stains that might have been blood. Where was it? Chin asked. Under the pillar where the suspects were tied up. Whoever did this dropped it. Chin studied the chain. It was a weapon, pure and simple. The kind of thing you carried when you expected trouble. The kind of thing that could shatter a jaw or crack a skull. The kind of thing a biker would carry. Bag it, she said. Get it to the lab for prints and DNA. You think we'll find him? Chin looked around the warehouse. At the evidence of calculated violence. At the little boy wrapped in leather who kept talking about his angel. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me isn't sure we should. Grave pushed the Harley north on I-95, rain plastering his cut to his back. He'd been riding for 3 hours, putting distance between himself and Riverside. No going back now. His parole officer would have questions when the news broke, and it would break, a rich kid rescued by a mysterious biker. But without evidence linking him to the scene, without witnesses who could positively ID him, what could they prove? Besides, he'd saved a kid's life. Even the most hard-ass PO would have trouble violating him for that. Still, Grave knew the smart play was to keep moving. Put a few states between himself and Massachusetts. Maybe head west this time instead of north. Colorado had mountains. A man could disappear into mountains. He pulled into a truck stop outside Portland, Maine, around noon. The rain had finally stopped, and his stomach was eating itself. He filled the Harley's tank, then grabbed a coffee and a burger inside. The TV above the counter was tuned to local news. Grave tried to ignore it, but then he heard. Miraculous rescue last night at the abandoned Riverside textile mill. 8-year-old Leo Vance, son of tech billionaire Marcus Vance, was recovered safely after an unknown individual intervened in his kidnapping. Grave looked up despite himself. The screen showed aerial footage of the warehouse, crawling with police. Then a photo of Leo, school picture, big smile, whole life ahead of him. The anchor continued. Police are seeking information about a man described as a member of a motorcycle club who allegedly rescued the boy and subdued 3 armed kidnappers. Marcus Vance is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to this man's identity, stating he wants to thank his son's savior personally. Grave snorted into his coffee. 50 grand. Vance had 800 million, and he was offering 50 grand. Rich people. Still, it was more money than Grave had seen in years. Enough for a fresh start. A garage somewhere. Tools. Maybe even a house. But taking it would mean going public. Meant questions. Meant his face on TV, his parole officer up his ass. Maybe even the Iron Saints taking an interest in their exiled brother making headlines. Nah. He'd pass. The burger was mediocre, the coffee worse, but Grave ate mechanically, fueling the machine. His ribs ached where Bull had caught him with an elbow during the scuffle. Grave hadn't mentioned that part to Leo. Kid didn't need to know his hero bled. He paid cash, left no tip, because the waitress had been rude about his cut, and walked back to the parking lot. His Harley sat where he'd left it, chrome gleaming despite the overcast sky. Grave ran a hand over the gas tank, feeling the familiar rumble even when the engine was cold. This bike was the one constant in his chaotic life. He'd bought it new in 2003 with his first real paycheck from the club. Had put 70,000 miles on it before Ironwood. The club had been supposed to take care of it while he was inside, but when he got out, they dumped it at a storage unit with a note. Your problem now. Fine. The bike was the only brother he needed anyway. Grave was swinging his leg over when a voice stopped him. Excuse me. He turned. A woman stood there. Mid-40s, professional pantsuit, expensive haircut. Behind her, a black town car idled with a driver at the wheel. Can I help you? Grave asked, tone making it clear he'd rather she go away. My name is Patricia Vance, the woman said. I'm Leo's mother. Grave went very still. How did you find me? I'm married to a tech billionaire. He has resources. She took a step closer. I wanted to meet you. To thank you. No need. Kid's safe. That's all that matters. You saved my son's life. I did what anyone would do. No. Patricia said firmly. You did what a hero would do. Most people would have called the cops and hid. You didn't. Grave shifted, uncomfortable. He wasn't used to gratitude. Wasn't sure how to process it. Your boy's brave, he said finally. Held up better than grown men I've known. You should be proud. I am. Patricia's eyes glistened. And I'm grateful. To you. My husband wants to meet you as well. To offer you a proper reward. Saw the news. 50 grand. Thanks, but I'm good. What if I told you it was more than money? Grave raised an eyebrow. Patricia glanced back at her car, seemed to make a decision. My husband's company develops security technology. He wants to hire you. I'm not a security guard. Not as a guard. As a consultant. Someone who understands violence from the inside. Someone who can test our systems, find weaknesses. She paused. It would be legitimate work. Good pay. Benefits. You'd have to relocate to Boston, but... I can't, Grave interrupted. Why not? Because... He struggled to articulate it. Because I'm not that guy. I'm not the suit and tie consultant guy. I'm a biker. I belong on the road. The road to where? Patricia asked gently. Where are you going, Silas? The question hit harder than he expected. Where was he going? Away. That was the only answer he had. Away from the past, from the club, from the man he'd been. But away toward what? I don't know, he admitted. Then why not give this a chance? 6 months. That's all I'm asking. Try it. If you hate it, you can leave. No questions asked. Grave looked at his Harley. At the open road beyond it. Freedom, yeah? but also emptiness. Just him and his thoughts and the miles between wherever he was and wherever he'd been. I'm on parole, he said. Can't leave the state without permission. My husband has lawyers. Good ones. They can arrange it. I've got a record. Arson. Assault. We're aware. We don't care. You saved our son. That's what matters. Grave rubbed his beard, thinking. A real job. Benefits. A place to sleep that wasn't a warehouse or a motel. It sounded nice. Suspiciously nice. Why, he asked. You don't know me. For all you know, I'm the guy who set up the kidnapping in the first place. The police considered that theory for about 5 minutes, Patricia said. Then they saw what you did to those men. The detective said it looked like someone protecting a child, not someone staging a rescue. She smiled. Besides, Leo told us everything. How you gave him your jacket. How you promised he'd be okay. Children are excellent judges of character. Kids also believe in Santa Claus. Do you not believe in second chances, Silas? The question hung in the air. Second chances. Grave had burned his first chance to the ground, literally. Turned in his brothers, lost his patch, did his time. He'd figured that was it. That he'd ride off into the sunset and fade away like an old biker should. But maybe. I need to think about it, he said. Patricia pulled a card from her purse. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. This is my personal number. Call me when you decide. The offer stands as long as you need it to. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. The jacket you gave Leo? He won't let us wash it. Insists on wearing it everywhere. Says it smells like safety. Her eyes met his. You made an impression, Silas. On both of us. She walked back to the town car. The driver opened her door, and she slid inside. The car pulled away, leaving Grave alone with his bike and a business card. He looked at the card. Patricia Vance, Chief Operating Officer, Vance Technologies. Then he looked at the road ahead. Empty. Endless. Grave tucked the card into his cut, swung onto his Harley, and sat there. Engine off. Just thinking. What if? 3 days later, Grave sat in a diner outside Bangor, Maine, staring at Patricia Vance's business card propped against the salt shaker. He'd been staring at it for 20 minutes. His coffee had gone cold. The waitress kept shooting him concerned looks. The problem was simple. He didn't know who he was anymore. For 20 years, he'd been Silas Grave Danton, Sergeant-at-Arms of the Iron Saints MC. His identity had been the patch on his back, the brothers at his side, the code he lived by. That world had rules. Hard rules, sometimes cruel rules, but rules nonetheless. Then 8 years in Ironwood. 8 years to think about those rules, about what they'd cost him. His daughter. His freedom. Pieces of his soul he'd never get back. Now he was nobody. Ex-con. Ex-biker. Just a man on a motorcycle with nowhere to be. The card offered something else. A purpose. A legitimate life. But could he really do it? Trade leather for khakis? Violence for PowerPoint presentations? His phone buzzed. He'd picked up a cheap burner at a gas station. Only 2 people had the number. His parole officer and Silas? It's Patricia Vance. Grave straightened. Mrs. Vance. Please, call me Patricia. I was wondering if you'd given any thought to our offer. I've been thinking about it. And? Grave looked around the diner. A truck or 2 booths over-argued with his dispatcher. A mother tried to wrangle 3 kids under 6. An old man read a newspaper, hands shaking with age. Normal people. Living normal lives. When was the last time Grave had felt normal? I'm worried I'm not the right fit, he said honestly. I've spent most of my adult life breaking things. People mostly. I don't know if I can be the guy who fixes them instead. What if I told you that's exactly why you're the right fit? Patricia said. Silas, my husband's company designs security systems. Locks. Alarms. Protocols. And you know what the problem is? What? The people designing them have never broken into anything in their lives. They think like engineers, not like criminals. They create systems that look good on paper, but fail in practice. She paused. We need someone who thinks like you. Who sees the weaknesses. Who knows how a real threat operates. You want me to think like a criminal. I want you to help us understand them. There's a difference. Grave considered this. It made a kind of sense. Who better to design a lock than someone who knew how to pick one? What about Leo, he asked. How's he doing? He's seeing a therapist. Having nightmares. But he's strong. Resilient. Patricia's voice softened. He asks about you every day. Wants to know if you're coming. I'm not a role model. Maybe not. But you're his hero. That counts for something. Grave rubbed his temples. This woman was persistent. He had to give her that. If I say yes, he said slowly, I need conditions. Name them. I work alone. I don't do teams. I don't do meetings unless absolutely necessary. And I keep my bike. I ride when I need to clear my head. Done. Anything else? Yeah. I need to know this is real. That you're not just offering this out of guilt or gratitude. Because I don't need charity. This isn't charity, Silas. This is business. My husband's company is worth billions because we identify threats before they materialize. You represent a unique perspective we can't get anywhere else. She paused. Plus, yes, we're grateful. Is it so wrong to want to help the man who saved our son? When she put it that way, I'll need to clear it with my parole officer, Graves said. Give me his information. My lawyers will handle it. And I'll need a place to stay. Nothing fancy. We have corporate housing. Fully furnished. You'll have your own apartment. Grave realized he was running out of objections. Maybe that meant something. Okay, he heard himself say. I'll try it. 6 months, like you said. But if it doesn't work, then you leave. No hard feelings. You have my word. After they hung up, Grave sat with his cold coffee and thought about the strangeness of life. 3 days ago, he'd been sleeping in a warehouse, no plan beyond the next mile. Now he had a job, an apartment, a purpose. He pulled out his wallet, found the photo he kept hidden behind his license. Sarah, age 8, gap-toothed smile, sitting on his Harley. The last picture taken before everything fell apart. 16 now, practically an adult. Probably wouldn't even recognize him. But maybe, if he could prove he'd changed, if he could show her he was more than the man who'd abandoned her, maybe she'd give him a chance. Second chances. That's what Patricia had asked about. Grave had never believed in them before. Maybe it was time to start. 6 weeks later, Grave sat in a glass-walled conference room on the 23rd floor of Vance Technologies headquarters in downtown Boston. Through the window, the Charles River glinted in the afternoon sun. Below, normal people lived normal lives. He was wearing slacks and a button-down shirt. No tie. He'd drawn the line at ties. His cut hung on the back of his chair, a reminder of where he'd come from. Across the table, 5 engineers in their 20s and 30s stared at him like he was an exotic animal. Which, in this environment, he supposed he was. Marcus Vance sat at the head of the table. 52, silver temples, $3,000 suit. He had the confident air of a man who'd built an empire from scratch. Gentlemen, Vance said, this is Silas Danton. He's going to be consulting on the Titan project. Silas, these are our lead engineers. Nods around the table. Wary smiles. Nobody offered to shake his hand. Grave didn't care. Tell them what you told me, Vance said. Grave leaned back, making the chair creak. Your Titan home security system is garbage. The engineers bristled. One, a kid who couldn't be older than 25 with a MIT hoodie, spoke up. Excuse me, but Titan has triple redundant sensors, military-grade encryption, and I got through it in 4 minutes, Grave interrupted. Silence. Impossible, another engineer said. We tested. Grave pulled out his phone, played a video. It showed him at a test house Vance had set up, approaching the front door. The Titan system's LED blinked green, armed. Grave pulled out a small device, homemade, cobbled together from parts he'd bought at Radio Shack for $30, and held it near the door sensor. The LED blinked yellow. Disarmed. He walked inside. The video ended. What the hell was that? MIT hoodie demanded. RF jammer, Graves said. Bought the parts online. Your sensors run on a frequency that's stupidly easy to block. Any decent burglar could do it. But the backup. Your backup relies on the same frequency. I jam one, I jam both. And your military-grade encryption? Graves snorted. Military from what country? Because it sure as hell ain't current-gen US. Military. I could brute force your passwords with a laptop from 2015. The room erupted in protests, objections, technical jargon Grave didn't understand and didn't care to. Vance raised a hand. Silence fell. Is he right? Vance asked his engineers. MIT hoodie looked like he'd swallowed something sour. Theoretically, yes. But in practice, most burglars wouldn't. Most burglars aren't most burglars, Grave cut in. The good ones, the ones targeting your customers, they're smart. They're motivated. And they're willing to spend $30 at Radio Shack to bypass your $1 million system. Vance leaned forward. Can it be fixed? Yeah, but not by them. Grave gestured at the engineers. No offense, but you guys think like builders. You need to think like breakers. And you can teach us that? One of the engineers asked, skeptical. Graves smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I can try. But first, you're going to have to accept that everything you think you know about security is wrong. The meeting lasted another hour. By the end, half the engineers looked shell-shocked. The other half looked furious. Grave loved it. After they filed out, Vance remained. You made enemies today, he said. Good. Means they're listening. Is it really that easy to defeat our systems? Easier. I went easy on them because it's my first week. Vance laughed. It was a genuine sound, surprised out of him. Patricia said you'd be interesting. She undersold it. How is Leo? Grave asked. Better. The nightmares are less frequent. He's back in school. Vance paused. He still wears your jacket. Patricia had to buy him a smaller one so he wouldn't trip over it. Something warm uncurled in Grave's chest. That's good. He wants to meet you again. Properly. Maybe dinner. Grave shifted, uncomfortable. I don't do dinner. Burgers, then. Something casual. No pressure. I'll think about it. Vance stood, extended his hand. You did good work today, Silas. Keep it up. Grave shook it. The CEO's grip was firm, calloused despite the wealth. A man who'd built things with his own hands before hiring others to do it. Thank you, Grave said. For the chance. Thank you. For saving my son. After Vance left, Grave sat alone in the conference room, looking out at the city. Boston sprawled below, millions of lives intersecting, diverging, moving forward. He was moving forward too, he realized. For the first time in 8 years. Maybe Patricia was right about second chances. The nightmares came on a Tuesday. Grave jerked awake in his corporate apartment, drenched in sweat, heart hammering. In his dream, the warehouse had been burning. Leo was trapped inside, screaming, and Grave couldn't reach him through the flames. Just like the little girl in the Death's Head clubhouse. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, waiting for his pulse to slow. The apartment was too quiet, too clean, too normal. It made his skin crawl. At 3 a.m., he gave up on sleep, dressed, and went to the parking garage. His Harley waited in its assigned spot, pristine and patient. Grave swung on, fired it up, and rode. Boston at night was a different animal. Neon and shadow, drunk college kids spilling from bars, homeless huddled in doorways. Grave rode through it all. No destination, just movement. He ended up at a biker bar in Southie called the Iron Nail. It was neutral ground. No club affiliations, just a place where riders could drink in peace. Inside, the jukebox played Skinnerd. Pool balls clacked. The air smelled like beer and cigarettes despite the smoking ban. Grave ordered whiskey, neat, and took it to a corner booth. He was halfway through his second drink when a shadow fell across the table. Silas Danton. Heard you were dead. Grave looked up. The man was 60, built like a fire hydrant, with a gray beard braided with beads. He wore a cut, Death's Head MC. The enemy. Grave's hand drifted toward his knife. Easy, the man said, showing empty palms. I'm not here for trouble. Name's Hank Drummond. I was president of Death's Head back when you were Iron Saints. I remember. Grave's voice was flat. Your clubhouse. Your people. My niece. Hank sat without invitation. She was 5 years old. And yeah, she died in that fire you set. Grave's jaw clenched. I did my time. I know. 8 years. You could have walked if you'd kept your mouth shut. But you didn't. You turned yourself in. Hank signaled the bartender for a drink. That's the only reason I'm not putting a bullet in your skull right now. So why are you here? Hank's drink arrived. Bourbon, from the smell. He took a long pull before answering. Because I heard you saved a kid. Heard you nearly killed 3 men doing it. Hank met his eyes. That true? More or less. Why? Why what? Why save him? You don't know the kid. Could have walked away. Hell, probably should have, given your parole. Graves stared into his whiskey. Because I couldn't save your niece. The words hung between them. Her name was Emma, Hank said quietly. She liked dinosaurs. Wanted to be a paleontologist. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back. I know. They sat in silence. Around them, the bar continued its rhythms. Drunk bikers argued about carburetors. A couple made out in a booth. Life went on. I hated you for a long time, Hank said finally. Imagined all the ways I'd kill you if I ever saw you again. Slow, painful, creative, fair. But then I realized something. You didn't set that fire knowing Emma was inside. You said it because you were following orders, because that's what soldiers do. And when you found out what happened, you broke ranks. Turned yourself in. Took the fall. Hank finished his bourbon, slammed the glass down. That's honor. Twisted, fucked up honor, but honor nonetheless. Your point? Grave asked. My point is, maybe you're not the monster I thought you were. Maybe you're just a man who made a terrible mistake and spent 8 years paying for it. Hank stood. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna walk out of here. And I'm gonna tell my boys that Silas Dannon is off limits. No retaliation. No revenge. Slate's clean. Grave looked up, surprised. Why? Because Emma would have wanted me to forgive you. She was like that. Kind. Saw the good in everyone. Hank's eyes glistened. And because you saved that other kid. Proved you're more than the worst thing you ever did. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Word on the street is you're going straight. Working for some tech company. Consulting. Security. Good. Stay there. Stay out of the life. Because if you ever put that cut back on, if you ever ride with the Iron Saints again. Hank's voice hardened. All bets are off. Understand. Understood. Hank nodded and walked out. Grave sat alone with his demons and his whiskey, thinking about Emma. About Leo. About the thin line between damnation and redemption. Maybe Hank was right. Maybe he was more than the worst thing he'd ever done. He could only hope. 3 months later, Grave stood outside a middle school in suburban Boston. His Harley was parked at the curb, drawing stares from soccer moms in Range Rovers. He didn't care. The final bell rang. Kids poured out. A cacophony of backpacks and hormones and drama. And then he saw her. Sarah. 16. Tall. Her mother's eyes. Earbuds in. Phone in hand. World-weary expression that made her look 25. She didn't see him at first. Grave's throat tightened. He'd rehearsed this. Practiced what he'd say. Now all of it fled his mind. Sarah looked up, spotted him. Her eyes widened. She stopped walking. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the lawn. Father and daughter. Strangers connected by blood and broken promises. Then Sarah pulled out her earbuds and walked over. Mom said you were out, she said. No emotion in her voice. Just fact. Yeah. 3 months ago. You look old. Prison does that. An awkward pause. Around them, kids streamed past, oblivious to the reunion. Why are you here? Sarah asked. Because I'm your father. Because I wanted to see you. Because. Grave struggled for words. Because I'm sorry. For everything. For not being there. For the choices I made. Stop. Sarah held up a hand. Just stop. Another pause. I don't forgive you, she said. Grave nodded. He'd expected that. I understand. But, Sarah continued, Mom showed me the news. About the boy you saved. And I thought, maybe you're not completely terrible. That's fair. Are you really working for Advanced Technologies? Yeah. Consulting. Security stuff. Like a real job? Like a real job. Sarah studied him. Are you going to stick around this time? Or are you going to disappear again? I'm sticking around. Promise. Grave thought about all the promises he'd broken. All the times he'd let people down. He could make another promise. Hope this time was different. Or he could be honest. I can't promise, he said. Because I've broken too many already. But I can tell you this. I'm trying. Every day, I'm trying to be better than the man who went to prison. And if you'll let me, I'd like to prove it. Sarah considered this. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. Small. Hesitant. But real. Okay, she said. Prove it. How? Buy me dinner. Nothing fancy. Maybe that burger place on Tremont. I can do that. And answer my questions. Honestly. No bullshit. Deal. Sarah glanced at his Harley. Can I ride on that? Your mother would kill me. So don't tell her. Grave found himself smiling. You got a rebellious streak. I like it. Wonder where I got it from. Sarah walked to the bike, eyeing it like a new species. It's loud. Yep. And dangerous. Yep. Cool. Grave pulled a spare helmet from his saddlebag. He'd bought it last week, hoping for exactly this moment. He helped Sarah put it on, adjusted the strap. Hold on tight, he said, swinging onto the bike. Sarah climbed on behind him, her arms tentatively circling his waist. The Harley roared to life. They pulled away from the school, father and daughter, riding toward uncertain futures and impossible second chances. Behind them, the past faded into the background. Ahead, the road stretched out, full of promise. Grave opened the throttle, and Sarah laughed, genuine, surprised joy. It was the best sound he'd heard in 8 years. Maybe better. Leo Vance, age 9, stood in his bedroom, looking at the leather jacket hanging in his closet. It still smelled like motor oil and cigarettes and safety. His therapist said he didn't need it anymore, that he was strong enough on his own. But Leo kept it anyway, because some gifts weren't about need. They were about remembering. Remembering that monsters weren't always the things that went bump in the night. Sometimes they were the things that bumped back. Sometimes they were angels in leather and denim, sleeping in corners, waiting for a reason to wake up. And when they did, well, that's when the bad guys learned to be afraid. Leo smiled, closed the closet, and went downstairs for dinner. Somewhere in Boston, a Harley rumbled through traffic, and the world spun on, just a little bit safer than before.